Hello, everybody. I'm Justin Perez, and welcome back to the Air Raid Saturdays College Football YouTube channel. Today, we're just going to be doing our second edition of my weekly point spread picks. Pretty self-explanatory. I don't really got to go into detail about it. However, unlike a lot of other YouTube channels, I'm going to just be picking a point spread for every game on the slate that has a point spread. So, I'm not just going to be picking point spreads for the more notable games. I'm going to just be giving my point spreads for every single game during the week. So that goes from LSU versus Florida State to freaking East Carolina versus Michigan, every other game in between. So I'm not going to spend too much time on each game, obviously, because we got a lot to get through. But I'll just probably give like maybe one, like a little like minute or like half a minute as to why I'm picking the team to cover a spread. Let's see how this goes, but yeah, let's just get right into it. We got a lot to cover. We got a lot of games to get through, so let's just get right into it. All right, so let's get into it. So like I said, I'm just gonna be picking a point spread for every single game on the week 1 slate. So obviously, action starts off on Thursday, August 31st, which is actually tomorrow. We have 4 games that have point spreads because a lot of the games on Thursday and Friday, they're FBS versus FCS. So obviously, they don't do point spreads for those games, at least from what I can see on thescore.com. I got these point spreads as of August 28th, which is technically 2 days ago. So I haven't checked if they changed it all, but even if they did change, they'll probably be minute at best, minute changes. So starting off here, we got Kent State at UCF. Now, Kent State, obviously, they've been decimated a lot. They lost a lot of their best players and their head coach. A lot of their players went to through the transfer portal, and their head coach now I think is the offensive, or their head coach is now the offensive coordinator at Colorado, if I'm not mistaken. So Kent State's projected to be really bad this year, and I think UCF is gonna just romp all over them. So UCF, they're favored by 37 points, and I do think they're gonna be able to cover that. I know it's a really large spread, but at this point, Kent State being as bad as they're supposed to be this season, I think UCF is just going to stomp all over them in their Big 12 in their first game as a Big 12 member. So I pick UCF to cover the spread. Next, we have North Carolina State at UConn. Now, UConn, this could be a potential upset here. For North Carolina State potentially can be on the upset alert watch, but they're favored by 14.5 points, and I'm just gonna pick them to cover the spread. I think UConn will be able to put up a bit of a fight, or not a bit, but I'm sure they'll be able to put a fight through the first half. But I think North Carolina State will just pull away, so I got them covering the spread. Next we have the big one on Thursday, Florida at Utah, at number 14 Utah. Now, I just saw like 15 minutes ago, as of this recording, that starting quarterback Cameron Rising will be out of tomorrow's game for Utah, so they got to put the backup in. I forgot the name of the backup. It was on Instagram that I saw it. But Utah, they're favored by 6.5 points. I was considering on changing it to Florida covering the spread because of that breaking news that just happened several minutes ago. But I'm still gonna pick Utah to cover the spread here. I think they'll win by a touchdown. It's going to be a really close game. It's definitely going to be fun. Next, we have Nebraska at Minnesota. Minnesota is basically favored by the same amount of points. They're favored by 7 points against Nebraska. I think Minnesota will be able to win this game by at least 10 points max, I think. I think Nebraska is going to be able to really be competitive in this game, but obviously Minnesota, I think, has way better talent. And as a result, I picked them to cover the spread. Now, Friday games, we have Miami of Ohio at Miami of Florida. I got Miami of Ohio covering the spread. I know that it's a MAC team against an ACC team on the road, but Miami of Ohio is supposed to be one of the better teams in the MAC conference this season, so I think they won't, and Miami being Miami over the last several years, I think that, the Hurricanes are going to have some trouble with the Red Hawks in this one. So I got Miami of Ohio covering. I have Michigan State covering against Central Michigan. The Spartans are favored by 14.5 points. I have Louisville covering the spread against Georgia Tech. Louisville's favored by 7.5. I'll take that all day if I'm an actual bettor, which I'm not. I don't actually bet on these things because I don't want I don't want my money to go to waste by accident, but by picking wrong spreads or anything. But I think if I'm a bettor, I would go all in on this point spread. I think Georgia Tech will possibly get blown out in this game, so I got Louisville covering the spread. And then also another one that I'd be all over is Stanford covering the spread against Hawaii. Now Hawaii did cover the spread, I believe, last week against Vanderbilt, but and Stanford's supposed to be another bad team this season, but it's such a small point spread, a minimal point spread, that I don't see how Stanford can cover that, so I'll give them that. And then we start off with the gauntlet on Saturday, starting off with Colorado at number 17 TCU. I got Colorado covering the spread. I do not think it's going to be a blowout like some people are expecting. I think Deion Sanders has this team ready to play, and they're going to go out and they're going to try to prove that they can compete with a team that just went to the national championship last season. So I got them covering that. I also this might be a little bit of a surprise pick, but I have East Carolina covering the 35.5 point spread at number 2 Michigan. Obviously Michigan's going to be without head coach Jim Harbaugh for the first 3 games of the season due to a self-imposed ban by the university. But that, obviously I don't think that's going to have a huge effect on the outcome of the game. I still think Michigan will win, but East Carolina is way too good for me to not cover that spread. I think they'll be able to cover it. They might lose by several scores, but they're not going to get destroyed by a 36-point margin, in my opinion. I don't think that's going to happen, but, we'll find out and see. So I got the Pirates covering that, and I have Liberty covering the 9.5 point spread against Bowling Green. I don't really got to go into detail about that. Even though Bowling Green's a decent team, Liberty is way better than them. So I got them covering that. I also have number 25 Iowa covering the 25 point spread against Utah State. And then I have Kentucky covering the 25.5 point spread as the favorite against lowly Ball State. So this is what I have for my first slide. And now let's transition over to the next one. Alright, so now moving on to the next slide here. I have to make like 3 different slides for these. There's a lot of games, but just continuing on with the Saturday slate, we have Arkansas State going on the road against number 20 Oklahoma. I think Oklahoma's going to cover that spread. I know it's a big one. I know it's a large spread, but I think they'll cover that. And then I have a pick here that I think most people would be surprised by. I actually have Virginia covering the 28-point spread as the underdog against number 12 Tennessee. The reason why is because after that horrific accident that happened at Virginia last year, I really believe that the team's going to come out and play motivated and play with a lot of emotion, and try to leave it all on the field after that terrible incident that happened last year with, several of the players dying in a horrific, I believe it was a shooting if I'm not mistaken. So, I just got a feeling that, Virginia's going to be able to come out and they're going to play with way more heart and way more tenacity and way more emotion than what people are thinking originally. And I have them covering that spread just for that reason. I honestly hope they do. And to be honest, I hope they win that game because that would just be an amazing story. But anyway, let's move on. I also have Louisiana Tech covering the 20.5 point spread at SMU. I know SMU is a way better team than Louisiana Tech on paper, but I saw Louisiana Tech's game last week against Florida International, and they looked pretty good. Obviously, it was against FIU, and they struggled for most of the game, but I knew that was going to be a competitive match anyway, and it was a competitive match. So I think, Louisiana Tech will go on the road this time and actually play well against SMU. I still think SMU is going to win it, but, Louisiana Tech's going to cover that spread. I also have Northern Illinois covering the spread on the road against Boston College. The Huskies are 8.5 point underdogs. I have them covering the spread. I think it'll be a really close game that comes down to a field goal. So, yeah. Then we have Fresno State at Purdue. I actually got Purdue covering the 4-point spread. I think they're going to win the game by at least a touchdown. I would not be surprised at all if they win the game by at least a touchdown. Fresno State's good, but I got to back Purdue on this one. They're at home. It's the first game of the season. I know it's a rebuilding year, but they have to cover the spread some games, and I think they'll do that here against the Bulldogs. Next, I got Temple covering the 10.5 point spread against Akron. I don't really got to go into detail about that. I got Western Kentucky covering the 11.5 point spread as the favorite against South Florida. I have Auburn covering a 34.5 point spread as the favorite against UMass. I have number 19 Wisconsin covering a 27 point spread against Buffalo as the favorite. I got Ohio State covering the 30 point spread as a favorite against Indiana. I have Boise State covering the spread as a 14.5-point underdog against number 10 Washington. I have number 11 Texas covering a 35-point spread as the favorite against Rice. I have California beating North Texas, covering the spread by at least 7 in this game. I have number 6 USC covering a 38.5-point spread against Nevada. I know they failed to cover last week against San Jose State, but I don't think that Nevada has the same aerial attack, the same potential aerial attack that potentially devastating aerial attack that San Jose State has. So I'll pick the Trojans to cover the spread there. I also got Washington State covering an 11.5-point spread as the favorite against Colorado State. I have Baylor covering a 27.5-point spread against Texas State. I have Texas A&M covering a 37.5-point spread against New Mexico. New Mexico is just terrible. I wouldn't be surprised if they get rocked in this game. I have Army covering a 10-point spread as the favorite on the road against Louisiana Monroe. I'd be on that all day if I'm better. I also have UTSA covering a 1.5-point spread as the favorite at Houston. I have North Carolina covering a 2.5-point spread against South Carolina as the favorite. I'm picking Toledo, the underdog, to cover the 9.5-point spread at Illinois. And I have number 4 Alabama covering a 40-point spread against Middle Tennessee. I know that Middle Tennessee beat Miami last year, but that's Miami. This is a completely different animal that we're talking about in Alabama. And I think that Alabama will absolutely destroy the Blue Raiders in Middle Tennessee. So I got them covering the 40-point spread. And now let me move on to the final slide here. Just going through these as fast as I possibly can. Alright, now we're moving on to the last several games here. I mean, it's a lot of games to go through, but there's a lot less games because there's a lot of FBS teams playing against FCS competition. So we have only a handful more games to get through. I'll go through these in a hurry. So continuing with the Saturday slate, I have Texas Tech covering the 14-point spread as the favorite against Wyoming. I have number 7 Penn State easily covering the 20.5-point spread against West Virginia. I have number 24 Tulane covering the modest 7-point point spread against South Alabama. I know that game's going to be really tight. I have Virginia Tech covering the 15.5-point spread against Old Dominion. I'm going to pick BYU to cover their 19.5-point spread as the favorite against Sam Houston. And then I have Coastal Carolina covering a 14.5-point spread as the underdog against UCLA. Now, there's 3 games on Sunday. We have an afternoon game or a noon game with between Northwestern and Rutgers. I have Rutgers covering the 6.5-point spread as the favorite. Then during the 3:30 game, we have number 18 Oregon State going on the road against San Jose State. I think Oregon State's going to cover the 17-point spread. I think it's a little bit modest. I think they'll be able to cover that rather easily, although they might struggle a little bit in the first half against the Spartans like USC did last week. But I still got the Beavers covering that. And then in the big game, the big showdown, I actually have number 8 Florida State covering the modest slim 2.5-point spread as the underdog against number 5 LSU. I'm actually picking Florida State to win that game. Again, I hope they win the game. I would love to see them win the game, so I'm gonna pick them to cover the 2.5-point spread. And then on Monday, September 4th, we have a Monday game. That sees number 9 Clemson go on the road to face Duke. Obviously, Duke can be really competitive in this ball game, as they have a pretty damn good offense. But I think that even though Clemson might struggle a little bit in the first half, that's a strong possibility. I think they'll be able to cover the 12.5-point spread rather easily by the end of the game. I just think that the Clemson Tigers will be too much for Duke to handle during the second half, and I got the Tigers covering the spread. So that's about it. I try to go as fast as I possibly can. For these videos, I'm just going to roll through each of these games every week. I don't really want to give an explanation as to why, like a detailed explanation, because we'll be sitting here all day. So let me know what you guys think about my point spread picks in the comments down below. Which ones do you don't agree with, and tell me why in the comments as well. But yeah, that's about it. I'm going to try to post this tonight, and if not, I'll definitely try to get it out tomorrow. Really busy day. I had my first day of classes today in school for this fall 2023 semester, so it was pretty hectic today, but I was able to get home now and do this. So let me know what you guys think in the comments down below, and I'll see you next time.